Have you ever wondered what happens when a storm brings two strangers together in an unexpected way? You don't have anywhere to go, do you? Maya asked, raising her voice over the storm. My place isn't much, but it's warm and dry. Jacob Reed didn't answer immediately. He stood beneath the flickering awning outside the Midtown Business Tower, rain cascading from the brim of his coat, pooling at his feet. His phone was dead, his car stuck in a parking garage without power, and the streets had turned into shallow rivers. He glanced up at Maya William, his assistant. Normally, she was invisible to him, efficient but unremarkable, always a few polite steps behind. But tonight, soaked through herself, holding an umbrella over both their heads, she looked different. Mr. Reed, she said again gently. Leah and I live 6 blocks down. We've got soup on the stove. At least come in and dry off. He hesitated, then nodded once, just for the night. What secrets will this stormy night reveal? Leah peeked from behind Ma's coat. The 5-year-old giggled and waved a plush elephant. Mommy made stew, she chirped. If you feel for this character, like this video and comment your location. You might find others nearby watching, too. Jacob gave a faint smile. Their walk through the storm was quiet and brutal. Wind lashed the streets, uprooting trash cans and pelting them with leaves and debris. Maya led the way, careful to keep Leah protected. Jacob kept pace, wordless, soaked and shivering, but strangely at peace with his decision. They reached a small brownstone apartment with a narrow stairwell and a flickering porch light. Mia pushed the door open, and warmth flooded the air, savory stew, fabric softener, and something sweet like vanilla candles. Home, Leah whispered, tossing her elephant onto the worn couch. You can use the bathroom to dry off, Maya offered. I've got some of my brother's old clothes. Probably your size. Jacob nodded silently and disappeared down the hall. Maya moved quickly, setting the table and checking on the stew. She didn't want Jacob to see how little they had, how close she'd been cutting it this month. A single check missed and things might start falling apart. A knock at the door. His stomach dropped. She opened it halfway. And there stood Mr. Grant, the landlord, a man in his 60s with a comb-over and a permanent scowl. Maya, he said sharply. I hate to come by in the middle of a storm, but it's the 28th. I know. I get paid Friday. You said that last month. He leaned in. I'm not a damn charity. And I've got folks lining up to take this unit if you can't pay up. I just need a few days, she pleaded, glancing nervously toward the hallway. Grant followed her eyes and smirked. Oh, got company tonight? That your man? No, you know what's funny? He cut in, raising his voice. You people always got money for takeout and new hair, but can't pay rent. And now you got some guy in your house. Bet he don't even know what kind of mess he's walking into. A voice interrupted coldly from the hallway. I do actually, Jacob said, stepping into the light. He had changed into the Duke University hoodie, hair still damp. And if I hear you speak to her like that again, I'll make sure the city hears about it, too. Grant blinked. Wait, you're Jacob Reed? You run that downtown firm? Jacob didn't answer. Didn't think a man like you would be out here slumming it. What's the story? She throw on a little stew and play the damsel in distress? Jacob took a step forward. Leave now. Grant scoffed. You're defending her. Let me tell me something. Read people like her. Always begging. Always looking for someone to feel sorry for him. Before Maya could speak, Grant shoved the door wider, stepping halfway inside. You think I'm playing, Maya, he growled. Miss rent again, and I'll dump your stuff on the sidewalk. Child or no child? Jacob stepped between them instantly. Touch her again, he said low, and I'll have your license pulled by sunrise. For a long second, no one moved. The storm howled outside, rattling the windows. Then Grant spat to the side, turned, and slammed the door behind him. Maya's shoulders sagged. She reached for Leah, who had peeked around the couch, frightened. Jacob turned to her. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overstep. You didn't, she said quietly, steadying Leah. He does that every time I'm late. Usually without an audience. He looked at her carefully. Let me help. No, I can cover a few months. No strings. She shook her head. Don't. I've got this. You shouldn't have to. Maya stared at him, searching for the catch, for the pity, but it wasn't there. Just concern. Real, uncomfortable human concern. She drew a breath. I appreciate it, but help isn't something I ask for. You didn't, Jacob said. You offered it. He glanced toward the couch. Leah had curled up beneath a blanket, clutching her elephant. They sat at the table. Maya ladled stew into 3 bowls, hands still trembling. Jacob sat across from her in borrowed clothes, eating slowly, absorbing the contrast between her humility and her strength. After dinner, they sat in silence as the storm raged. Maya adjusted Leah's quilt and dimmed the lights. Jacob stood by the window, watching rain smear the city lights. It's been 4 years, he said suddenly. Since my wife died. Flash flood. My son made it out. She didn't. Maya didn't speak. I haven't said that out loud in 2 years, he added. She stepped beside him. I'm sorry. Most days I pretend it didn't happen. I know that trick, Maya murmured, pretending to be made of iron. He looked at her again. Really? Looked. You're braver than I am. Maybe. Or maybe I just can't afford to break. Their eyes met, not in romance, not yet, but in mutual recognition, of grief, of endurance. And for once, Jacob Reed didn't feel powerful or pied. Just seen. Get some rest, she said gently. Couch pulls out. He nodded and moved toward it. As he lay down beneath the lavender-scented blanket, a thought slipped into his mind. A strange, terrifying comfort. Maybe he wasn't alone anymore. Will this unexpected bond change their lives forever? The sun filtered through the blinds in thin golden lines, slicing across the modest living room where Jacob lay. His eyes opened slowly, the weight of sleep still hanging heavy on his chest. For a moment, he forgot where he was. The soft scent of something cooking, the faint sound of a child's laughter drifting from the kitchen. It wasn't the sterile silence of his penthouse. It was warm, lived-in, human. He sat up on the pull-out couch, blankets tangled around his legs. Leah was crouched on the rug nearby, lining up toy animals in a perfect parade formation. She noticed him stir and smiled shyly. Good morning, Mr. Jacob. He cleared his throat. Good morning, Leah. You snore, she said matter-of-factly, then returned to her elephants and giraffes. From the kitchen, Ma's voice floated out. Leah, manners. Jacob stood, stretching. His back ached from the unfamiliar mattress, but his pride ached more from last night. He'd lost his composure, stepped into a tenant dispute, made an enemy out of a slumlord, offered financial help he knew she wouldn't accept. He stepped into the kitchen. Maya stood barefoot in worn pajama pants and a t-shirt, stirring scrambled eggs in a nonstick pan. Her hair was pulled up, her eyes tired but alert. You didn't have to cook, he said quietly. I didn't, she replied, not looking at him. Leah did. I'm just making it edible. He allowed himself a brief smile. I don't usually eat breakfast. You do today. She plated the eggs, toast, and a few slices of avocado onto 2 chipped ceramic plates. Then she poured coffee into mismatched mugs. He sat at the tiny kitchen table, suddenly too tall for the space, his knees nearly brushing the underside. This feels, he began. Like someone else's life, she finished. He nodded. Ma sat across from him. Mine too sometimes. There was a quiet as they both began eating. Jacob chewed slowly, not just because he was unfamiliar with the flavor of real food, but because he didn't know what to say. Gratitude felt insufficient. Conversation felt invasive. Then Maya broke the Silence. I meant what I said last night. You didn't need to step in. You already did more than most would. He put his hands on you. She met his gaze. That wasn't the first time. Jacob's grip tightened on the fork. He can't get away with that. Maya raised an eyebrow. He can. He does. Single moms don't have lawyers. They have eviction notices. Jacob leaned forward. I can make this right. Legally. Quietly. She shook her head. You're not here to rescue me, Mr. Reed. I'm not trying to be a hero. Good. Because I don't need one. Her voice wasn't sharp, but steady. Practiced. He leaned back. You're hard to help. You're not the first to try. She looked away, then toward Leah, who was now humming to her stuffed animals. I had a scholarship once. Full ride to NYU. Leah's dad was my high school boyfriend. When I got pregnant, he vanished. And so did the scholarship. No one at admissions cared about extenuating circumstances. I worked 3 jobs, lost 2, moved back in with my aunt, got certified in office administration because it was fast and affordable. Jacob listened. No interruptions, no pity. I never looked back, she finished. Because looking back doesn't change what's ahead. There was a long pause. Then Jacob said, That's the first real story I've heard in months. Mia blinked. You don't talk to people much, do you? Not like this. She gave a small, dry laugh. Well, welcome to the middle class. We do this every morning. Coffee and confessions. He chuckled despite himself. Suddenly, Leah raced into the room holding a tablet. Mommy, the weather says the bridge is still closed. The school's emailing. Maya took the tablet. Her face fell slightly. No buses today. They're advising work from home if possible. Jacob stood. Which means I need to figure out how to access our backup servers without an IT team. Maya looked up. You can work from here. I have Wi-Fi and a second-hand laptop that mostly functions. He raised an eyebrow. You'd let me do that? You slept on my couch. What's one more line crossed? He hesitated, then nodded. I'll have a courier drop off my tablet. She looked at him carefully. You really trust couriers during a storm? He paused, almost smiled again. I'll improvise. They moved into motion. After that, Maya cleared the dishes while Jacob borrowed her laptop. Leah settled in with coloring books and old cartoons. For a few brief hours, they worked in tandem, her helping him navigate glitchy software, him impressed by how fast she caught on to the technical side of company operations. The awkward silence of earlier was gone, replaced by a quiet rhythm. Around noon, a knock at the door froze the room. Maya tensed immediately. Jacob stood. She opened it cautiously. A young delivery man stood there, soaked and panting, holding a tablet in bubble wrap. From Midtown Tower, he said, for Mr. Reed. Jacob stepped forward, took it, and nodded. Thanks. As the delivery man left, Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You thought it was him? She nodded. Grant doesn't need an excuse to cause trouble. Jacob stared at her a moment. I'll make sure he doesn't bother you again. Maya didn't answer, but the way she turned back into the apartment said she believed him. By nightfall, the storm had finally begun to calm. The wind no longer screamed, and the rain softened into a rhythmic tapping. Jacob packed up his things quietly. I'll head back, he said. The roads are clearing. Maya met him at the door. Thank you for not making last night about pity. It wasn't, he replied. It was about respect. They stood there for a long beat. Then Leah ran up and hugged his leg. Bye, Mr. Jacob. He patted her head awkwardly. See you soon. As he stepped back into the night, Maya watched from the doorway. She didn't know what had shifted, but something had. Not in the air, not in the weather. In him, in her, in both. The storm was gone by sunrise. In its place, a misty gray sky hung low over the city, like a curtain drawn after a long performance. The streets were still wet, slick with fallen leaves and broken branches. But the worst had passed. For most, life was returning to its mechanical rhythm. At the 32nd floor of the Reed and Whitman office, the lights buzzed back to life. Servers rebooted, phones rang again, employees filed in late and groggy, their commute still, truncated 76,849 characters, doesn't, he asked? She turned to him, her voice soft but unyielding. Then I'll start over again and again, however many times it takes. Jacob nodded, eyes heavy but proud. You know, he said after a while. I used to think power was about control, position, leverage. And now? She asked. He looked at her. Now I think it's about the ability to protect and the courage to use it. Maya didn't say anything, but in the dark, her hand found his. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe. Not because the fight was over, but because she knew without doubt that she could win the next one. It had been 10 days since the second exposé. 10 days of headlines, interviews, emergency board sessions, and a mountain of transition paperwork. But Maya hadn't collapsed. She hadn't even slowed. Her body ached, sure, fatigue weighing down her bones, but her resolve had never been clearer. The air around her felt different now. Not lighter, just cleaner. No longer tainted by fear. But as she walked into the office that morning, a chill ran down her spine. There was something in the air. Not quite a presence, but a tension. I held breath. Clara met her at her door, holding her tablet close to her chest. We have a situation, she whispered. Maya's heart didn't skip, it steadied. What happened? Jacob's office was broken into last night. Maya's eyes darkened. Inside job, Clara said. Nothing's missing officially, but the security team found the door lock manually overridden. No signs of forced entry, just precision. Surveillance blacked out only on that floor. 30 minutes exactly. Maya didn't speak. She didn't need to. They were still in it. Jacob was pacing when she entered his office. They left this on my desk, he said, holding up a white envelope. Maya took it from him slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed. Cold. You've cleaned the surface, but rot lives in the foundation. Stop digging or we'll start burying. Maya inhaled sharply. Not out of fear, out of rage. Jacob met her eyes. They know we're close. We scared them. Maya set the paper down and looked around his office. No more secrets. From here on, everything we do, we document. We share. If they want to bury us, we'll make sure the world already knows what we've found. Clara entered behind her, hesitating. There's more. Maya turned. Go ahead. A contact from the inside, anonymous, left a voicemail with details about a code-red protocol used by senior execs. It's like a failsafe designed to destroy or hide digital evidence in case of illegal collapse. Jacob frowned. Where? Clara swallowed. Basement-level server room. It's not listed on any map. Maya didn't hesitate. We go tonight, quietly. Just us. At 11:46 p.m., the building was nearly silent. Maya, Jacob, and Clara moved through the back stairwell, avoiding cameras and motion sensors Clara had temporarily disabled. The basement smelled of metal and dust, untouched by daily life above. Behind a rusted utility door, marked electrical, authorized only, they found it. A second door, coded keypad, no label. Clara worked in silence, her tablet wired into the panel. Almost there, she whispered, then click. The door eased open. Inside, servers hummed quietly. No lights except the blinking rhythm of data. In the far corner, a locked glass cabinet held 3 black boxes, each labeled with barcodes. Clara approached and scanned the barcodes. Encrypted storage. External uplink capabilities. These are private data caches. Jacob opened one. Careful. Inside, USBs, files, hard drives, all unmarked. This is it, Maya whispered, the rot. All of it. Suddenly, footsteps echoed in the hall outside. 3 sets, heavy, unhurried. Jacob shut the cabinet and Clara cut the lights. They backed into the shadows just as the door creaked open. Flashlights flickered. 2 men, 1 woman, security, but not the usual team. Private, unbadged. Check the cabinet, one barked. Another stepped forward, reached. Maya stepped out. Gunmetal flashlight in her hand, shining directly in their faces. Step away now. The 3 froze. You have no authorization to be here. The woman hissed. And you do? Maya countered. I'm head of internal risk and ethics. You? The woman faltered. One of the men reached for his earpiece. Don't, Jacob warned, stepping into the light beside Maya. This room is under direct investigation. You touch anything and you'll be interfering with federal compliance. The 3 hesitated, then retreated slowly. Not saying a word, Maya didn't lower her flashlight until the door closed again. Clara exhaled. They were going to wipe it. Mia nodded. Not on my watch. By morning, the contents of the secret server room were in federal custody. The FBI launched an official investigation, citing potential conspiracy to obstruct corporate accountability. Jacob briefed the board personally. 3 members resigned before noon. But the real moment came hours later when Maya stood before the entire staff, hundreds of employees packed into the auditorium, thousands more watching via livestream. She stepped up to the podium and looked out. I know many of you have been afraid, she said, her voice soft but unwavering. Afraid of speaking, of acting, of simply being seen. She paused. You're not alone. You were never alone. And the silence that once protected power no longer holds dominion here. Applause swelled. But Maya raised her hand gently. There will be more to uncover, more reckoning. But I promise you this, no truth will be buried again. Not on my watch. And this time, when the applause came, it wasn't just loud. It was united. That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Maya stood in her apartment window with Leah perched on her hip. Did you win, Mommy? Leah asked. Mia kissed her daughter's temple, eyes glistening. We're still winning, she whispered. Every day. Outside, the city lights flickered on. But inside, something brighter burned. Justice and the fire that no threat could extinguish. The courtroom was colder than Maya expected. Not in temperature, but in atmosphere. Marble walls, steel fixtures, no warmth, just precision. A space built not for comfort, but for consequence. She sat near the front, watching as the clerk read the charges aloud. Lawrence Keton sat across the room, his once confident jaw tight, his suit impeccable but stiff like armor that no longer fit. Conspiracy to obstruct justice, evidence tampering, harassment, a list of charges longer than the resume that had once opened every door for him. Jacob sat beside her. Not as a CEO, not as a man who had once looked down from the highest office, but as a witness, a friend, a quiet soldier who chose the right side of history when it mattered. The trial wouldn't end today. But the first hearing had begun, and for Maya, that was everything. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered like wind around glass, cameras ready, microphones extended. But today, Maya didn't speak. She didn't need to. The documents, the footage, the testimonies, they spoke louder than she ever could. Back at Reed and Whitman, the change was visible. The lobby no longer echoed with silent tension. Employees walked with heads higher. Conversations were open, not hushed. Transparency wasn't just policy. It was practice. Maya passed the glass boardroom where once she'd been humiliated. Now it bore a plaque. The William Room, in honor of those who speak. She had argued against it initially, but Jacob insisted. It's not a monument, he'd said. It's a reminder. Clara greeted her at her office with a smile and a file folder. Whistleblower policy revisions, she said. New hotline launches next week. Also, Angela Hughes is requesting one final interview. Maya raised an eyebrow. Final? She says it's for the closing arc, the after. Maya considered it, then nodded. Tell her I'll do it on one condition. What's that? She interviews the survivors. Not just me. Clara smiled wider. Already suggested it. She said yes. That evening, Maya stopped by Aunt June's brownstone with Leah. The familiar scent of cinnamon and old gospel records drifted through the open windows. Inside, June sat on the porch in her worn floral dress, rocking gently, knitting needles clicking in rhythm with the past. I saw the news, June said without looking up. You made quite the storm. Maya smiled, handing her a thermos of tea. And I'm still mopping up the flood. June chuckled, eyes twinkling. Good. World needed a bit of shaking. Leah ran barefoot through the yard, chasing fireflies. Her laughter light as wind chimes. Maya leaned against the porch railing, watching her. She won't remember most of this, she murmured. No, June said. But she'll grow up knowing her mama never backed down. That's what she'll carry. Silence stretched, soft and sacred. Were you ever scared? Maya asked. June finally looked up. Of course, but scared's not the same as stopped. Maya nodded, swallowing the lump rising in her throat. Weeks passed. Catan's empire crumbled. Property sold. Shares seized. A ripple effect moved through the corporate world. New protocols, stronger protections, whispered fears that perhaps this time consequences weren't optional. Angela Hughes released her final piece, The Woman Who Lit the Match, but she didn't write it as a biography. She wrote it as a movement. And Maya, she didn't fade into the background, but she didn't seek the spotlight either. She returned to her work, her daughter, her peace. One morning, Clara walked into her office holding a sleek cream-colored envelope. Maya opened it carefully. An award nomination, the Roosevelt Integrity Prize, recognizing individuals who have shifted culture with courage. She blinked, once, then twice. Jacob leaned against her doorframe, smiling. Told you they'd come knocking. Oh, I didn't do this for medals, she said. I know, he replied. But that's why you deserve it. The ceremony was held in Washington, D.C., an ornate hall, a stage flanked by flags. Mia didn't invite press, just June, Clara, Jacob, and Leah, who wore a tiny blazer and clapped louder than anyone in the room. When Maya took the stage, she didn't read from a speech. She spoke from memory. I was taught growing up that justice was slow, that it crept, that it waited for permission, but I don't believe that anymore. She looked out over the sea of faces. Justice moves when people move, when we speak, when we act, and when we refuse to be quiet just because it's easier. She paused. I didn't ask for this fight, but I won't apologize for finishing it. Thunderous applause followed. But the real reward came later when a young woman approached her quietly, hands shaking. You don't know me, she whispered. But I was one of them. I saw what he did. I didn't say anything until your story. She pressed a folded letter into Maya's hand. I'm speaking next week to my board. I just wanted to say thank you for making me brave. Mia held her gaze. No, she said softly. You were already brave. I just reminded you. That night, back in her hotel room, Mia stood at the window looking out at the Capitol lights. Leah slept curled beside June on the couch. Jacob was on the balcony talking softly on the phone. And Maya, she was quiet, not because she was done, but because for the first time in a long time, there was nothing chasing her. The storm had passed, and in its place, a stillness she could finally trust. She walked to Leah, brushed a braid from her daughter's forehead, and whispered, We made it. Then, as the city breathed around her, she sat down, pulled her notebook close, and began writing. Not a confession, not a warning, but the beginning of something new. A future shaped by truth, built on ashes, and lit with the fire of every woman who refused to be erased. This story reminds us that courage doesn't always roar. It often whispers in the quiet choices we make each day. Maya's journey teaches us that standing up against injustice isn't about being fearless. It's about refusing to let fear silence what's right. It shows that truth, no matter how deeply buried, has the power to rise. And when it does, it can change not only policies, but people. Most of all, it reminds us that justice is not a gift handed down by the powerful, but a right earned and defended by those brave enough to speak when it matters. Brought to you by BUP Stories.